Hey everyone, welcome back to another Wellbeing Wednesday. My name is Susanna Creed. I'm your host today, and I'm really excited about what we will be talking about today. I think there's a lot of wonderful opportunities for personal growth and self-esteem building in this particular topic. So we are going to be talking about professionalism and positively professional. So how does that relate to wellness? Well, professionalism falls under one of the eight dimensions that we have mentioned on Wellbeing Wednesday, which is occupational wellness. We spend so much of our time in our work, in our jobs, whether that's remote work, whether that's in the field, in the classroom. We spend so much of our time there. And so, how we feel about our jobs, how we feel about ourselves as professionals in those jobs can affect our well being. And I think a lot of times for ourselves, we don't think about that unless we're looking for work. But one of the things that I want to kind of touch on today in our topic is something that I'm really passionate about, which is whether we love our job, whether we're looking for work, whether we're taking a break from work, whatever that is, when we can feel really positive and good about our professional skill set and who we are as a professional, that is always going to help us out. It is always going to build our self-esteem, even if you're not looking for a job. If I have my resume and maybe I'm having a really rough day or it's just a rough week or something like that, I can look at that resume and be like, yeah, I did do all those things. Oh, I really can do all these skills, I have all these things to offer, and it helps us feel good and positive about who we are. So this professionalism, we are not saying everybody look for a new job, but you can do this no matter where you are in your professional career, no matter if you're looking or not. This is going to help boost your self-esteem and really help us reflect even on, oh wow, look at all that I have been able to accomplish and do. So I'm really excited to talk about this, especially as it relates to caregivers and early childhood educators. And with us today, I'm very excited to welcome Tomekia Moore. So she made time for us today. We're super excited. She is the executive director of the Arkansas Community Action Agencies Association. I always have to look to make sure that I get all the proper A's and C's where they need to be. And she has worked very closely in that work with early childhood educators and especially Head Start professionals over the years. So I'm really excited for the conversation that we have going on. And for all of you who are watching live, or even if you're watching a replay, please feel free to comment any questions, any aha moments, reflection points, things that really stand out to you. Please put those in the comments because we will be looking at those throughout our conversation today and even afterwards. So without further ado, Tomekia, welcome. We are so excited to have you with us today.
Thank you, Susanna. Very glad to be here today. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, let us dive right in. So I kind of gave a little bit of an overview, at least of my perspective on professionalism and how it relates to our sense of well-being. And I'd love to get your take on what does professionalism mean to you as an individual? When you hear that, what comes to mind and how has that played a role for you?
Sure. And I love the way that you're going with that particular concept. A lot of times when we think about professionalism, we think about, I don't know, practices and actions and things like that, even reputations, if you will. But connecting that back to our well-being, that is so important. Motivating ourselves by all that we have accomplished. That's something that we don't give ourselves enough credit for. At least I don't believe. So, you know what? At the end of the day, it kind of falls along that plane, and it's something that we've been given a lot of attention to, is that, we are forever learning. We are forever in a state in which we should be seeking growth and development. And that's exactly what comes to mind as I look to gain more professionalism, that state of growing, learning, and developing along the way.
Yeah, I love that. And especially, bringing it to the context of early childhood education. Luckily, we are, especially since the pandemic, kind of brought a lot of like a spotlight onto early childhood. And I think we're seeing little shifts here and there about people really understanding how essential early childhood is, and the care of our children in those very young states, is so important and so crucial, and they are essential workers. I think people are starting to see that, at least kind of on the national scale, a little bit more. And we are starting to see some improvements, like even in Arkansas here, we have step up to wages, different things like that are starting to give the accolades that early childhood educators deserve, the social status, understanding that this isn't just babysitting. Like there is a lot that goes into it. These professionals are really holding our next generation in their hands and helping mold their minds. Like, this is a big deal. However, even though we have a lot of those positives that are slowly starting to shift, so much of the time I feel like there isn't quite that recognition in society, or even if, for family childcare, in the parents that you're serving. Sometimes they do appreciate you and sometimes they don't. And that's still something that we are working towards and fighting for in this field. And that's why, in some ways, it can be so important for us to do that reflective work, to say, you know what? Let me actually look at all the things that I've done. Let me look at all the courses I've taken. Let me look at all of the different works that I've been able to do. Who have I served? And even if it's for nothing else but a reflective exercise, we can then say, that's right. Despite what anybody else thinks, no matter how wonderful they think I am, or if they think I'm just babysitting, I know what I have done and I can reflect on that. And that's why a resume can be so powerful. I mean, anybody who's watching this can probably raise their hand of like, who wants to work on a resume? They're like, no. And every time you think of resume, you're like, no. But when we think about it as a reflective exercise, you literally will have your professional highlights that you can look at anytime in one-page format. Like, that is such a cool thing to be able to do. And so kind of shifting that to look at, like you said, professionalism as a growing learning opportunity, and even something as boring as a resume can be one of those opportunities. And then again, if you have somebody who, maybe a parent said something or a colleague said something, or it's just a rough day, you have a one pager that shows all the awesome things that you've done and can reflect that back for you. So I love the way that you were talking about it as this learning and growing piece too. And so I know I get very passionate about this topic, so that's why I talk so much. But with this, I wanted to get your take on, why do you think professionalism matters in the field of early childhood specifically? Why is this something that early educators and caregivers need to think about for themselves?
Well, one of the things, and I want to just revisit what you just talked about. I think that it's so easy to get sucked into what others think about us. You have mentioned, sometimes being referred to as a babysitting service. It's so easy to get sucked into those little things, and you can hear something long enough that you begin to believe it yourself. And we believe this characterizes and embodies everything that we're doing. Like, I'm just here watching kids all day, or I really don't have any value in this space. But I'm a firm believer in seeing is believing. We have to have all of these different things to kind of reinforce our thought processes. So when we see that resume with all of those skills listed and all of those things that we have accomplished, when we begin to talk about those things out loud, when we, just kind of reinforcing that on all fronts, that makes a difference. But when we begin to connect that back, professionalism, to the life of the early childhood educator, and a lot of people don't see the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into this profession, right? You see educators or caregivers with children and playing and having fun and all of the little frilly, cute things. But there's so much more that goes into that. There's planning and preparation for your day. There's lesson planning. There's connecting with individuals across your community to make sure that your children and families that you're serving have the resources that they need in order to be successful and to thrive. There are all of these different fronts that are covered, and then even the academic, components to that. I'm building my learning and skill set so that I can provide quality care and a quality learning environment to these children. So there are so many different components that go into that. And I think a lot of times that is missed when we refer to this particular sector, childcare, and that early childhood education component.
So there's something you mentioned that I also want to highlight that we don't think about. And because it's so easy, right, to get bogged down in the day to day. And I mean, I've been working so closely with educators over the past just 3.5 years of just seeing how much, like, this is heart work, and it is
Mhm.
hard work. Like, people are putting everything they have into this role, and it can be really easy to get bogged down into that. And sometimes we don't even realize all of these amazing things we're doing. And so you mentioned the community connection. I, for any educators who are watching this now or watching the replay, I want you to think about if you have ever called an organization or done research or connected one of your families with some resource outside of your classroom. And if you're family
Mhm.
childcare, have you connected them with something outside of your home and the services you directly provide? If you're in Head Start, I want you to think about that. If you're a home visitor, think about outside of those one-to-one interactions with the families, have you ever connected a family with an outside resource? That is something that is a skill set. That is something that can be added onto your resume. And that is something that I would encourage any of you watching as caregivers, as educators. If you have done that, remind yourself that you are
Mhm.
providing resources and connecting these families to essential services and supports. Because, like you said, it's not just in the classroom. There's all the planning, all the prep work, all of these things. But we are also, as educators, community connectors. I have seen you all out in the field. I have seen how much you care, and I've seen how much you are willing to bend over backwards and connect your families with those resources. Even if it's, you're a Head Start educator and you're connecting them to another part of your organization for a resource, that still counts. And when you just focus on all the things that happen in the classroom, we forget, oh, yeah, I'm also shouldering that. Oh, yeah, I also have the skill set to be able to, connect and refer. Those are also really essential parts, like you said. And I think we've seen this beautiful shift, especially over the past like 10 to 20
Mhm.
years in education, of seeing where schools and classrooms are actually kind of community hubs, right? They are places where families can go to get essential services or get connected to essential services. The education sphere where that classroom education is happening, that's just the beginning. That's the touch point. That's the start point in this
Mhm.
relay race to provide all these services to families, because we know when the families are healthy as a unit, then that child can take what they're learning in the classroom and continue that at home. So there's, and that's why it's so important for us as professionals, no matter what field we're in, if we change fields, if we're educators or not, whoever is watching this, I encourage you to pause and really start to think about all the different pieces of your work. Even just start with your current job, just jot down bullet point, and you will be amazed. It is a beautiful
Mhm.
exercise to just start to bullet point these things, and you'll start to remember all the other pieces, and that list gets longer and longer and longer. I'm not saying take that and immediately apply it to a resume, but just even see what that experience is like for you. You might surprise yourself. And it's really, and this is again where that connection to well being is, seeing that, recognizing that, reflecting on that for ourselves helps us feel better and more confident about who we are. And it might even,
Mhm.
especially if we're in burnout, it's very common in this field is burnout. Doing something like that, a short exercise, taking 10 or 15 minutes and just writing as many things as you can think of that are part of your day to day, doing that in that reflection, you might actually reconnect with the purpose of why you do what you do and that passion. And that might help to kind of start to get you out of that burnout. Because that's another piece
Mm.
is connecting what we're doing to some part of ourselves, some part of our passion, of our causes, of our care. And so, again, I love that we're kind of getting into all these hidden pieces that go into this job and this field and bringing those to light because it helps us remember we are good at this and we do a lot and we give ourselves those accolades, so
Absolutely.
it's just so cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
You know,
I'm going
but
to check the chat
Susan,
real quick.
oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but as you check the chat, I want to comment on something that you said
Yeah.
because I'm really excited about this. So you talked about burnout. Burnout is real. It's real.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes, so it's like we've kind of disconnected, from whatever environment it may be. And a lot of times, just kind of recalling what our purpose is, intentionality, and something as simple as, seeing what I was able to accomplish at this point in time. Get me back to that. So
Yeah.
just kind of going through those visualization processes and thinking back, okay, I was on fire at this time. How do I get back there? But thinking through those things, I think that also kind of sets the tone for professionalism. Sometimes we have to do a shift. It's not always easy to um, do the things that are required of us. But thinking back, sometimes that plays a lot, especially into that well-being piece.
Yeah. And so now I'm going to piggyback off of that as well. We're just going to piggyback all the time. I love it. That's why these are so much fun. But so one of the things that's interesting too, and I love that you use the word shift. So just for everybody, that is SHIFT, shift, and shift happens, right? Because a lot of times we
Mhm.
think, oh, I'm feeling burnt out. It's the job. I need to get out of this job. Now, this is not just education, this is across the board, right?
Mhm.
But a lot of times, what we might find through some of these reflective exercises is like you said, oh, I really enjoyed this when I was doing XYZ. Let me get creative and see, is there a way to incorporate more of that? So, and another thing too is also recognizing our gifts and maybe the things that bring us joy, the types of things. So I'll give you an example of something that we've seen in Be Well Care Well. So when we're doing on-site work site wellness, we have what's called a well-being committee where it's a small group of staff members, usually the director and a couple other educators or admin who volunteer to be on this committee. And one of the things that we
Mhm.
like to do is we like to get to know each of those staff members and get to know what their gifts are. What are the things that they enjoy? And of course, what everybody does is within the job, like, oh, I'm organized or I'm on time or I do this. And we say, no, 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 you as a human, what are those things that you enjoy that you feel are your gifts? And so, for example, maybe somebody says, you know what, I'm a really good like cheerleader. Like, I really do like loving on other people and I like showing appreciation. Well, if that person loves doing that, what if a way to bring wellness into the whole work site is to say, you know what, you really love showing appreciation. And this other
Mhm.
well-being committee member really loves creative expression. Like her doors and her bulletin boards are always on fire. What if you two worked together and maybe had like a staff shout out board or some sort of appreciation board where this one staff member was kind of helping lead the creativity piece and the other one was saying, let's show appreciation in this way and taking the lead. Now, does any of that have to do directly with academics and teaching children? No. However, it then has a ripple effect because these people are bringing things and aspects of who they are that they enjoy and recognizing, oh, there is room for that within my profession, within
Mhm.
my job. It's just we don't see that. We don't connect it. We go immediately into our little buckets. But thinking
Mhm.
too about what am I good at? What are the things that I enjoy? And if I take off what I know, and if I have kind of like a child's mind, if I have a child's mind and I say, what is possible? How could this be incorporated into my work day in general. Maybe that's, you know what? We don't have Be Well, Care Well. We don't have a committee, but I love showing appreciation for people. One of the things that I did for a while is I would take a random post-it note and I would put it in somebody's like office or somebody's cube back at my last job. And I didn't even sign it. I didn't do anything, but it felt good. I got to get a little creative and I got to say like, hey, you're a rock star and just leave it and wait to see if they knew it was me because eventually they figured it out. But, something like that. And that brought a little joy. And that had nothing to do with
Mhm.
the work I was doing, but it was a way to bring myself into it. So I also encourage any of you who are experiencing burnout or who are just feeling a little meh, think about your personal gifts and then get
Mhm.
creative and think about what possibilities are there for this to be incorporated into my work, and so it's one of those things too about looking at outside of not just the classroom or outside of just the computer or outside of just the admin. Like,
Right.
what else could be possible? And that's even part of the learning that you mentioned too, of just like, oh,
Mhm.
that's me learning and growing and getting creative in my thought process. So,
Absolutely. I love that you're mentioning that because I'm thinking about plateaus, right? Just talked to a
mm-hmm,
group about that the other day. And, that's very common, across this profession. It's easy to reach a plateau. But I think what helps us is that, just with that intentionality piece, I want to reach my greater. And that does push us to look, you know, at things from all different perspectives. I'm in this classroom with these children. I'm in this setting with these children. But how can we improve what we have? And that does take looking outside of that immediate space, making those connections across our communities. And I say that because that whole child approach, just going back to that, and all of these behavioral models that we have out there, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, for example, if a child's most
mm-hmm.
basic physiological needs are not met, if that child is hungry, if that child doesn't have a roof over their head, if that child doesn't have clothes or feel safe, he or she will not learn, cannot learn, because I'm worried about eating at the end of the day or whatever those circumstances may be. So when we look at that point of professionalism, being able to go out and say, hey, we're going to connect the pieces. We're going to meet our families and our children where they are. And it takes an amazing individual to be able to do that, right? To be able to see past the scope of whatever it is, that lesson plan, you know, because sometimes it's easy to get stuck in that. I'm going to deliver this lesson and that's going to be it. But look at how amazing you are in this field. Look at what you're capable of doing. Look at the hope that you give your children and your families. That is huge and definitely of much value, not just to those children, not just to those families, but to the entire community.
And that actually just made me think about something kind of interesting too. You know, confidence, confidence and self-assuredness, that goes a long way. And so, I mentioned at the very beginning how we're starting to see some shifts where people are starting to understand, oh, this isn't just babysitting, that sort of thing. And it's starting to get a little bit more like, oh, let's pay attention to this. Oh, this matters. Even though we're starting to see that, one of the things that we can do as individuals, we might not necessarily be able to change their minds right away and get everybody to see how great we are. But when somebody asks us about our work and we feel confident because we know the work that we do and we have done that some of that reflection and we've been able to internalize that this job is a lot and I am good at this job and I am proud of the work that I have done and that I do. I don't have to say any of those words, but that is internalized and people pick up on that. They will see,
Mhm.
oh, this person like they come in, when you meet somebody and they are just confident. They don't have to say it, they don't have to say how great they are, but they are confident and you say, okay, you know what, I this is something I need to listen to because obviously there's something
Mhm.
really powerful there. So without intentionally going out and trying to change people's minds, which is a great thing that we need to do, that advocacy work is great and we need that, But by
Right.
doing this for ourselves, by internalizing that positive pride, because we have looked at the concrete examples of all that we do and the different aspects, I can walk in and whether or not somebody says, "Oh, yeah, you babysit," I say, "No, this is what I do." I don't have to try to yell at them or change, but I am confident and people are
Mm-hmm.
going to notice that. So when we as educators, especially early childhood educators, walk into a room or in our community, start to talk about our work, ooh, that's going to be a powerful wave because we are confident, we are strong, and people will notice that whether or not we intend them
Mm-hmm.
to. But all of that comes naturally when we really look at, again, those examples and really start to internalize and remind ourselves. And maybe it's even you have that bulleted list and you say, you know what? Each morning before I start or before the kiddos get here, I'm going to read through that list. Or maybe once a week, I'm going to read through that list because then I will start to internalize it myself. And that is what's needed for me to feel really confident, really proud of the work that I do. And I get to bring that energy to any space I'm in, and people are going to notice. And then they start to see, oh, this is a profession. This is a true
Mm-hmm.
profession, and these are professionals as they should be seeing it, you know? But it's like that is where the individual can also start to shift that as well. So,
Absolutely. I wish your viewers could see my wall across from us because I have something called my Beatitudes, and it speaks to what you're talking about. These serve as a constant reminder, a daily reminder to me of the energy that I should be giving off, and how much I should
mm-hmm,
appreciate this opportunity that I have in this space, right? Even in the classroom setting, little things like that, little notes, affirmations, if you will. Hey, you are awesome. You are a change maker. You are kind.
mm-hmm,
Whatever it is, you are knowledgeable. You are valued, heard, and appreciated. Little things like that can make a big difference. As I mentioned earlier, seeing is believing. We have to
mm-hmm.
reinforce these things on all fronts.
And it's beautiful that you mentioned that too, because there's kind of those tropes where, oh, we just have those things around. But now what you've hit on is really the connection. And also what I
Mhm.
encourage, if any, I mean, I'm a very big realist, and it's hard for me to just kind of throw on that positive face because I'm like, I'm just putting a candy coating on it. But so for me, some of those things can be hard if they're not grounded in reality and my lived experience. So say I'm writing out all those bullet points. What I can do
Mhm.
is I can either draw or I can type out and I can pull a couple of those key things, and those can be my affirmations because they came from me, from my real experience, my real work, and I'm putting that out there.
There you
Now, also,
go.
we're a lot of educators, and so a lot of times we want to have the pretty colors and whatnot. But again, if that's you, make that intentional connection. I'm not just putting up you're awesome just because. I'm putting up you're awesome because I know all the things that I do and I am good at them. Make that
Mhm.
a very real connection as well. And so, and also, fun fact that goes into our environmental wellness, the environment that we create for ourselves, the surrounding ourselves with, you know, the things that are going to build us up and everything. So, and I cannot believe it every single time this happens. But we are pretty much at time. So, again, Tomekia, I really want to thank you so much for being here and just discussing this important topic with us. This is always been a blast, but definitely today has been really wonderful to connect with you on that. So I want to thank you and take a moment for that. So,
Thank you, Susanna. The pleasure was all mine.
well, thank you so much. And so, the obligatory, we all know, make sure that you RSVP to the Wellbeing Wednesday Facebook event on Curricula Concepts, and make sure to be following Curricula Concepts and Be Well, Care Well on our social medias. That way, you know when each Wellbeing Wednesday is going to be happening, and you don't miss any of the important resources there. Also, in the chat and in the comments, you will see Tomeka's information as well as the ACAAA information. So I believe it has her email, the website, and their Facebook page too. So they post lots of community-based resources there. So again, if you're trying to connect your families with resources in the community, Tomeka's your girl, and ACAAA is great for that. So definitely follow them on Facebook as well. That'll be wonderful. And so, with that, we are going to conclude today's Wellbeing Wednesday. I thank you all so much for being here, and we will see you next month for our September Wellbeing Wednesday. Bye, everyone.